Welcome back to the Mostly Legal Podcast, a show where we tell the stories of people who make law firms operate. I'm Amanda Koplos, Chief Operating Officer at Sheffield, Lohman & Wilson.
And I'm Rob Joyner, Senior Vice President of Business Development at Centerbase.
Today, we've got an incredible guest. We're joined by William Washington III, or William Washington from Washington, as he likes to say. He's the global CFO of Baker McKenzie. His story is one of resilience, grit, and transformation.
William went from being a high school and college dropout and a young dad to leading finance for one of the largest law firms in the world. Along the way, he learned lessons on perseverance, leadership, and creating space for others to thrive.
In this episode, William discusses career breakthroughs, what it means to lead as an introvert, why law firms need to rethink talent and technology, and even a fun story about a chance airport encounter with, well, you'll have to listen to figure out which celebrity that is.
You won't want to miss this. Let's dive in.
Okay, welcome. Today we're speaking to William Washington III, who is the Global Chief Financial Officer of Baker McKenzie. Did I get that right?
You got that.
Right firm? Okay. Yeah. I scrolled. I didn't remember the right firm. So you are also all these things. And at some point, I'm going to need you to explain some of it because like a black belt in Six Sigma, that's going to be a question I'm going to ask you. But the very first thing I want to ask you about, when you and I met, I was lucky enough to interview you at the ALA annual conference this year. And as we were prepping for the interview, we were trying to think of something interesting to start off the interview with. And you said to me, well, I have kind of an interesting story about somebody I met this past weekend. Would you like me to tell that story? And it went really well. So borrowing on tradition, can we start with you telling us your famous travel story?
Oh my goodness. I mean, travel stories, can run the gamut. Anything from, I got stuck behind somebody in the longest line to get into the business class lounge. So, anything along those lines. But the story you're referencing, and you left out the part where we were first spending like 40 minutes trying to fit into the chairs properly.
Oh, no, that was me.
Sounds... She's
Rob,
picky.
I'm a little high maintenance.
We don't have to worry about that on a podcast. We can just sit any way we want. But when you're on a stage and everybody's looking at your shoes and your legs, you have to find an interesting story to distract from all of that. So
Rob, does that surprise you at all that I was?
No,
really
don't ever give her a stool, William. She hates them.
A stool would be great because then you can just pretend you're at a bar, keep it moving.
I would be great at pretending I'm at a bar.
Well, we were telling a story about, and it was a flight delay story. I had actually gotten stuck on a flight delay in London, and I was sitting in the lounge trying to work out getting on a flight that would get me even onto the USA mainland. I couldn't even get out of the country, and I'd already checked out of my hotel. And this woman comes walking past, and she's the only other person in the lounge. And she walks past once, and she walks past twice, and I really wasn't in the mood to speak to anyone because I was really a little bit perturbed about my flight. But eventually, she stopped and we started this conversation. And it goes like all other conversations. Why are you here? Why am I here? She talked about feeding some lambs on a countryside estate of some prince, which was distracting all in of itself. But after a while, we had got into a long, engaging conversation about kids and family and about meeting our spouses. And it was a really good conversation. It was like an hour-long conversation. And I was super excited to have met a fellow traveler who, had similar life stories to me. And right before we're getting ready to part, we said, let's exchange phone numbers. And when I exchange phone numbers, I always have a gimmick. I always say, I'm William Washington from Washington. And that usually kind of catches people and they go, oh, you're from Washington. And she said, well, we were tapping our phones because we were showing how technology literate we were. She goes, well, I'm Brooke Shields. And when she said that, it kind of hit me because I was like, interesting. She has the name of a famous person, but still it didn't register with me. I'm like, I'm not going to say what most people probably say, which is, oh, you got a name of a famous person. I'm just going to keep talking as if I didn't even notice she said that. We kind of went on, and long story short, the flight got delayed some more, and she's running around trying to help me, and I'm running around trying to help myself. And in the meantime, I Google what does the famous model from the 1980s, who all of us like admired, look like today? And boom, same person in the same face comes up, and I'm like, oh, crap, I'm talking to Brooke Shields.
Wasn't she talking about a book she had just written?
Oh no, yeah, you got this.
Yeah.
Yeah, she. That was the funny part because she kind of told me a story about writing a book during COVID and being surprised because all these people bought her book, and
And
now
how well it did.
yeah, the CEO of the book company. I thought it was a fantastic story being a business person. I said, wow, this random housewife or woman who otherwise does nothing but feeds lambs, like was able to write a book during COVID that spectacularly enough, resonated with women because she was talking about not caring how you look when you get older. Then I kind of put two and two together. If it's Brooke Shields talking about not caring what you look like when you get older, I'm pretty sure most women will be like, oh my gosh, if Brooke Shields doesn't care, why? Let me get that book. Why should I care? Yeah, it was kind of a trick. And I did a post on LinkedIn where I kind of teased, like, who did I meet at the airport one week? And then the next week I came back and kind of did the big reveal. And honestly enough, she is a very down to earth person. She still has a huge following if you look at her on Instagram and other social media. And she does have some great products that she's rolling out today. And Brooke, if you're listening, because me and her are like besties now, I'm like, Brooke, if you're listening, I enjoyed the meeting 100%. And
I'm
still
also
really
willing to
watching
be
this
your
for a while.
bestie if you need another bestie. I volunteer as tribute.
All right. I have her. I have five.
Incredible. That's a great story. William, let's dive into your background some too, because I found this it's extremely interesting when we were doing the pre-call. You walked us through how, and I want to make sure I'm getting it right. You were a high school dropout, a college dropout, a young dad, and now you're this global CFO. Like walk us through that journey.
Well, that journey came with 1,000 footsteps. And as much as I love you guys, I don't think I would take anyone through that actual journey because I wouldn't wish it upon anybody to kind of live some of the life experiences. But you're right. I often tell people the reason I even tell my story today is because every one of us has something that has happened in our lives that have taken us off track or that have kind of bust that bubble of hope. And for me, it was each of these things. And now looking back, it was all of these things, right? So I always say, my story isn't something I read in a book. It's not something I heard on the radio. I didn't see it on a TV show. I lived it. It's a part of me. It's who I am. So when I think about my journey, in my early childhood, when I was a high school dropout and a college dropout, and I was being evicted from my apartment, and having my stuff thrown on the streets, if you were to step into that moment, that exact moment, I felt utter despair, right? Like my stuff was sitting on the street. I had no idea who took what, when, how I was getting home. I had no idea what home was going to be next. And I literally had just lost any semblance of hope for a future that I had ever had, and that story kind of just got compounded because when I did find a home, moved in with my sister's friend, went through some other life challenges, had a kid, like you said, and then my sister was murdered, and like she was the closest person to me, and she was my older sister, the one who taught me how to tie my shoes, the one who was leading me through life, albeit not really the right way. Things like that just kept seeming to compile one after another. And I was fortunate, and a lot of people are, to get a second chance. But more importantly, when I got a phone call to go back to college after I had dropped out and been evicted, I took advantage of that opportunity I had, and I went back to school, and I was living in Washington, D.C., but I had to go all the way down to Mississippi in order to enroll in college. But when I did, I made sure, one, that I picked a major that meant something to me. So I picked finance because I was so broke. I wanted to study money. Two, one of the biggest memories I have, Rob, was I said, I'm going to treat school the same way I was treating the jobs that I had, right, leading up to that. I was already working 8 to 10 to 12 hours a day. I was already doing stuff I didn't like. And so when the schoolwork started coming at me, I just took that same approach. And I said, I'm going to buckle down. I'm going to go to the library every single day, whether I have homework or not, whether I have a test or not. I'm not going to get distracted. And I spent 8 to 10 to 12 hours a day studying. And I was a single parent at the time. And I think that that was part of the thing that kind of flipped everything upside down and put me on a trajectory I'm on now. But if you listen to my story long enough, you'll see it didn't end there. There were many other bumps and bruises along the way to get me to where I am today.
You mentioned so many things that a lot of people don't even have to deal with one of those, just being honest, right? But there might be somebody listening that's going through something just as hard. Based on where you were and where you've gotten to now, what would you say to that person?
I'd say and I'd say this, I feel like every time I speak, I repeat the same messages because they were so key and pivotal to me. But realizing that the world needs everybody, right? Like the world doesn't like we were all created different for a reason, and so often when I was in early childhood and early school, I thought, oh, well, there's a straight A student, and there's the person the teacher likes, and that person's going to get all the rewards, and they're going to get all of life is going to be dumped into their bucket, right?
Yes.
And I really didn't think there was space in the world for someone who had been through, evictions and being a single parent, being raised by a single parent, being on food stamps. I didn't think the world had space for me, and definitely didn't have space at the leadership level that I'm at now. But now in retrospect, I realized that those experiences, which gave me resilience, which taught me to take advantage of even small moments of opportunity, which told me that you can't do everything by yourself. Sometimes it's better to have a team around you and to develop that team and to work together towards a common goal. All those skills I learned when I was going through those challenges are the same skills I use today in my current role. And so when I'm looking at somebody, and often I do, I'm speaking to an audience and I see sometimes people are in tears and you ask them what they're going through. It's not their challenge that's really the problem. It's their lack of hope and believing that that there's even an opportunity out there for them. So I really try to look at people and say to them, like, the world needs you. You just need to do your part to get to where the world can use you. And that can sometimes seem hopeless, especially as you get older in life. Most young adults I talk to are finished college, working for multiple years before I was even of the age where I started college because, I had to take the side roads to get to where I got to.
So after you went to college, you've done a couple of different jobs. You've been in legal now only 15 years, which I say only because I've done this for 20 years. So I can say that as the legal veteran. And you've gone through different size firms. So for someone who didn't start their career in legal, like, what was your aha moment when you said, okay, my skills belong in legal?
Well, I do have you beat because you didn't start with my part of my story where I was working in a mailroom of a law firm.
You're right.
5 years before I even went to school. So besides Harvey Specter from the movie Suits, and I can't remember the woman's name, but we're the ones who went from the mailroom to the C-suite in the legal industry. We just took us a few years to get there. But really, my aha moment when I came into the legal industry, it's because legal industries are private partnerships. You don't really get a lot of public information about law firms.
Right.
And you definitely don't get handed a playbook on how to be successful in law firms.
If you did, I would like a copy, please.
Exactly. Maybe I should write that book.
You should.
But when you come into law firms, what you notice first is that all law firms operate a little differently. You have to figure them out somewhat like a Rubik's Cube. And you have to be bold enough to be the change that you want to see, and remember, going back to my previous message, the world needs you. Law firms need you. They need people coming from both in the industry and outside the industry. And for me, building a network of other like-minded people who were willing to do things that were innovative, willing to change the status quo, willing to work hard to get it done, willing to work as a team, really finding like-minded people, not just within my firm, but from other law firms, was really the secret sauce for me. So I often tell people one of the first things I did was form a mastermind group because I had heard the term mastermind, which was basically just peer-to-peer networking. And anyone who knows me who was part of my mastermind group will tell you, I used to invite them to lunch and I used to say, I'll pay for your lunch because I knew that would get people there.
Yep.
And I would invite 8 to 10 people and I would pay for their lunch. And I would pick a topic that I was most curious about and I would get the table talking about the topic. And I told them our number one goal was to professionalize the profession of supporting lawyers and law firms. And I'll tell you, some of the best ideas I got came from those mastermind groups. And to this day, I still have a mastermind group. Now it's a mastermind group of global CFOs who get together on a regular basis to talk about topics. Because it's my mastermind group, I tend to pick the topics. They don't catch that part of it. And then we talk about the topics and I get some of my brightest solutions from other great minds.
Do you find that you talked about professionalizing the profession? Do you find that you still fight that? I mean, I still fight it, but do you still fight like explaining to people, to lawyers, to outside the industry that what you do is CFO, but for a law firm, it's different? Or, I mean, do you still run into that?
My lawyers are the smartest, greatest, most innovative people ever.
Well, mine are second. I mean,
Okay,
mine too.
We'll pull that out for the clip.
We have to say that in case anyone's listening. But at my last law firm, oh boy, yeah. Look, there are battles to be fought in any industry, and the legal industry is no different, kind of different, sort of different. And actually, I look at it a little differently. I say the areas of opportunity are so great that it gives us the opportunity, if we want to be the business professionals that we set out in our careers to be, it gives us a lot of opportunities to implement change. So it's actually a great environment for change. Now, does that mean, and let me go back to one thing, I almost always forget to tell this part of my story. Somewhere in my career, and I can't remember whether it was at Accenture or Fannie Mae, I learned, actually, it was when I first came to the legal industry. I learned that sometimes you need to gather your ideas, write them down on paper, and be willing to put them in a drawer and file them and bring them out when the environment is right and ready to receive them. Like every idea that's great doesn't need to be like shoved down people's throat and accepted, or else the earth is on fire. You can put together a list of ideas, put them in a file cabinet, and if you're patient and you walk through the journey and you let people know, and you got to let lawyers know this in particular, that you're in the boat with them, right? Like this problem we're facing it together. And if you get them to understand you're all in the boat together, you want to be rowing in the same direction, then those opportunities for those ideas will come up. I just had an idea come up this past week that I had my first law firm, my second law firm, third, and because it came up from a lawyer in London, it is now a great idea. And I'm all with it, pulling out my folder, ready to go.
Here it is.
So, William, you talk about leadership, and one thing you post about is the fact, introverted leadership, right? You've mentioned earlier on that you're an introvert. I tend to sway that way too, although I have extroverted tendencies as well. How does being an introverted leader play out in your day-to-day? Make sure you mention your work dinners too. I love what you said about that.
Don't forget the work dinners. So you have to go to my LinkedIn post, William.Washington at LinkedIn. No. Look, people mistake the word introvert to mean like quiet, shy, scared to speak type of people. That is not the definition of an introvert and not how I define myself as an introvert. My definition for William Washington of being an introvert is, if given an opportunity, first of all, I need time by myself to recharge. That's an absolute. That you will not get the best version of me unless I have time by myself to recharge. Second, if given the opportunity to spend time in a crowded, noisy, loud, raucous environment, et cetera, or to be alone by myself, I'm picking me 10 times out of 10. and super happy when it happens. And so a lot of people see me like on a podcast like this or in an environment, they see all this energy I have and they say, you're not an introvert, but they don't know what I did to prepare for this moment, in order to get my batteries up to full charge. I love people. I love playing basketball, going for runs, playing tennis, and there are a lot of things I do with others. But in order to have my energy levels right, I have got to have time to recharge. And when it comes to being a leader, I depend on my team. My team is almost like my family, and so if I'm an introvert or a person who's hiding in my office, and we've all had leaders like that, right?
Yeah.
Who have an open door policy with a closed door, as a leader, I feel like I need to be accessible to my team and I need to facilitate things for the team to do together. And so you mentioned before about team dinners, or work dinners, I wrote a post about this. I wrote 2 posts about this and linked them together where I said, I don't do work dinners. And
You're just giving ammunition to
yeah,
Rob. I just want you to know.
I let it hang out there for a while, and people go, "Oh my gosh, William's antisocial," or "William doesn't understand. That's where you build relationships," or "William doesn't understand." All the things I don't understand. But what I want other people to do is understand the other side of that. That me, how I am, and people like me can't always sit in meetings from 7 in the morning to 6 at night and then also go to a work dinner from 7 to 12 or 7 to 11 or do whatever and still be their best self when it comes to the next day. So what I've done is I've set a boundary up to say, you know what? If we've been meeting all day, we've had the opportunity to interact. We've had continental breakfast together. We've had our sandwiches and chips for lunch. And sometimes you throw a salad and fruit in there. Like, when you go off to drink and have dinner, I need to go back to my hotel room or back to my home and recharge. And I set that boundary up intentionally so that I'm my best self when I come in the next morning. And I said, if we'd like to connect, let's also create other ways to connect. Maybe we could do morning walks together. Maybe we can, find time at the beginning of a meeting to level set on where we all are. Like you guys were talking when I joined the call about the twins and the twins' birthday party and Cooper flag and other things. So as a team leader, I model the behavior that allows for all personalities. We can have a team dinner, but we can also have team walks. We can also find other ways to get to know each other.
You're just giving Rob all this ammunition because every time we're at a conference, I'm like, let's go out, let's go drink, let's go to dinner. He's like, nope.
Here's what's going to happen. William and I are going to be at the same conference. We're going to go back to our own rooms and watch basketball. Then the next morning, we're going to get together at 5 a.m. and play basketball and talk about the game the night before. It's great.
Well, and we're happy. And look, if people are at dinner having drinks and eating food, talking about why I'm not there, then that tells you how good the dinner is right there. I hope they go to dinner and have a great conversation and a good time. And I would want them to hope for me that I went back, answered my emails, talked to my family, watched basketball and played basketball with Rob. We have to make space for everyone's personality.
This is great.
Oh, well, love it. Okay, let's talk legal just a little bit here, or finance, or accounting, or whatever favorite topic.
Or twins.
Or what?
Or twins.
Or twins. Yes. No.
Amanda
doesn't even like talking about his twins.
Amanda has to have it relate to her more. So let's go in the finance.
This is called the Mostly Legal podcast. So we're going to be a little legal. Mostly, or maybe this is just a little legal. Okay.
Go, Amanda.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. It's just my show, right? Okay. You and I talked about this. We talked about the legal talent pool and basically with regards to the accounting team. So you have 47 countries. How many people are on your finance and accounting team in total?
1,300.
1,300. Okay.
1,300.
And do you know all of them?
Know them all by first name,
But how have you seen the need for that talent change over time? How are you finding, like, how is your traditional pipeline growing? Is where there's fewer and fewer accounting people going to school to get accounting degrees. There's fewer graduates. So how is that affecting you and your team and your
That's a
firm?
great question, because if I listen to the leaders of our firm and the other legal professionals, they are looking for us to professionalize the profession. They want good talent. They
Hmm.
don't want report generators. Don't want people who are pushing buttons. They don't want people sending over loads of data and letting them figure it out. So they really are looking for a different type of talent. And for me, because I came from outside legal, I tend to be very open minded to finding the best professionals and then teaching them the job that we need them to do. So when you look at the skill set of my number two person in finance, she doesn't have a finance degree. She'd never worked in finance that I can recall before working for me, but what she brought to the table was huge drive to perform and work hard, huge intellectual curiosity, and a strong understanding of the business needs of our partners and our lawyers. And how did I know that? Because she had asked me for advice when we worked together at another law firm. She was working in legal project management. And she said, I'm having a really hard time teaching the lawyers the importance of project management and really getting time with them. And I said, well, you sit in this cubicle or this office back in the backside of floor 10 in like 1011B cubicle. I said, why don't you like use the table out in the main lobby, and there's a main lobby area, and it has a screen that projects to all, and just work with your screen up, and people will start to see the work product. And I'm simplifying the conversation,
Yeah.
but I'm telling you, like the next day I come up the elevator and I see her working there at this main desk in this main area. I see her screen projecting, and I see the impact that she started to have on the business by just being teachable, and by wanting to work hard and make that commitment that she needed to make in order to deliver for the business. And there were things like that. Other examples I can give you, other things she said, that when I had the role come open, I was like, I don't care what it takes. I want you in this seat, and I will teach you finance. So I think we have to be willing to understand what the needs of the business are first,
Yeah.
and then be willing to find people who are teachable, and then go after that talent with I'm also willing to, I believe you have to pay to get top talent to some degree. I'm fortunate to have people who are located in low cost areas as well, but you do need to be willing to show people that the work that they've done to develop their professional abilities will be rewarded.
We'd like to take a moment to thank our sponsor, Centerbase, legal practice and management software designed to deliver optimal efficiency, profitability, and business growth for your mid-sized law firm. Learn more about how Centerbase helps you practice, manage, and grow your law firm with modern technology at centerbase.com. So, William, I can't get off a podcast episode without talking about one topic that I love, and that's AI. So Amanda, come back up. You're still here. So, William, I'm gonna keep this really wide open. You go in the direction you want to go. But as a law
And you
firm,
can choose to not. It
I'm
could be
gonna pull
not.
that GPT up on the other screen.
yeah, go ahead. I would pull Claude up, but you can pull GPT up. Amanda, that was for you.
Oh gosh, I
My
know.
question to you as a law firm leader, how are you preparing and thinking about AI within a law firm?
So how am I preparing and thinking about AI in a law firm? I, William Washington, am preparing the same way I prepared when I was a single parent on food stamps trying to get a degree. I am doing my best to get educated
Yeah.
about a topic that I think is going to be a big driver of our business. So personally, I've signed up for a 6-month class at Wharton where AI and AI strategy is the only topic. And I had told myself I wasn't going back to school ever after I gotten multiple degrees in my Six
Black
Sigma.
belt, you got to talk about that still. Yep.
Yeah, but that's one way, and that's the way I'd recommend for anyone to prepare. Like it's good to try to.
I just want to tell you, Rob and I are laughing because we are currently fighting about this because I keep saying I want to go back to school and get a degree and get some kind of program to learn about AI. And he devalues education for his personal life. And he's like, just teach yourself, just teach yourself.
I wake up at 4 a.m. and I just go teach myself and I build things. Different approaches.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
We talked earlier about making space for everybody, right? Like,
I know. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but the two of us are just cracking up because we've been fighting about this for a while now.
Different learning styles.
So you're doing a program at Wharton.
I'm doing a program at Wharton. There are pros and cons to every program, and you have to find your way of learning and there's no guarantee the program is going to put me in a better position than Rob's going to be in 6 months. But I guarantee you, both me and Rob and you will be in a better position than those who don't do anything. So I think that's the important message to take.
You're right. That's really the important.
Yeah. And so we all need to take steps to advance our knowledge. And I felt it was important that I was willing to do as much as I'm asking my team to do, if not more.
Yeah.
Because we had started off our AI journey saying, let's bubble up use cases and everybody play with ChatGPT. And what I noticed was that they were looking for something more in terms of a strategy and a program to come from leadership. And that's what the program I'm taking is designed to do, is to help you come up with a program for your function or your organization, which is more than just being a super user.
Right.
I think it's leadership's responsibility to figure out how to best create the roadmap and the fabric for the firm or the organization that you lead.
All right. So staying on tech a little bit, I won't drag us off of this. Law firms are really slow to change. We are notoriously slow to change. Somebody always told me that like law firm financial performance is 18 months behind the market, and that's on a fast day, right? What's the biggest like finance strategy shifts you're seeing that are being driven by technology, and which firms are getting it right? Which ones are getting left behind because they're not adapting?
Well, that's a good question, because I started off earlier saying it's hard to really see inside law firms. And law firms are good at media announcements and making bold proclamations. I remember when I first came in the industry, it was Seyfarth Shaw, however you pronounce her name, that they were the Lean Six Sigma law firm. And I was like, oh my gosh, I remember calling the person because I had my Lean Six Sigma Master Black Belt. And I was like, I can't wait to talk to them about how they use Lean Six Sigma. They never returned my call. And then I moved. My second law firm was Orrick, Harrington, and Sutcliffe. And I was told that they were the first ones with a offshoring, nearshoring capability in Wheeling, West Virginia, where they got these low cost resources. And I said, oh my gosh, I'm a finance guy. I can't wait to go there and see. They must have huge profit margins. They like low cost resources in Wheeling, West Virginia. And I went there, and there were a lot of things they were doing right with that, but it wasn't to the degree of what you would say when people talk about Jack Welch and GE. I was looking for a Jack Welch and GE type experience. And yes, law firms aren't going to be as efficient and effective as a GE, primarily because of the way their leadership structure is. And in fact, I grew up at Accenture in a professional services environment, and I've often gone back to my colleagues there and asked where they are on efficiencies, on adoption of AI and other things. And they are, like you said, not 18 months ahead, but they are like squeezing the last drop of like efficiency out of their processes and systems. Whereas, we're like, which part of the, like, maybe law firms need like Wegovy or what's that stuff called? like we need the new like
Journo.
What's it called? The
I was thinking like the Journo. I don't know, I don't know.
The new medicine, you can take the medicine and you don't have to exercise, and you can.
Oh yeah.
Because we have not figured out how to do it. Now the good thing is we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We do not have to reinvent the wheel. All law firms are in the same business, providing services to our clients in an efficient way. Our clients are asking for it. And so as clients continue to push, law firms need to open up the drawer, the cabinet drawer, and pull out their ideas and start to implement them at a faster pace. And I do believe, all right, Rob, drum roll.
Here we go.
I do believe AI is going to be the game changer that's going to stimulate them to move faster than they moved before because the market is going to be moving and changing and evolving at a pace that going slow, it just won't be permissible anymore.
You know, my hypothesis is it's going to kill the billable hour. Is it going to kill the billable hour? Will this do what it takes?
I think we need a statement different than that, right?
Okay.
Because they wrote, like if you Google that, they wrote whole papers on that.
In the 80s.
Yeah, we want to create a new mantra. I don't know what it is, but maybe ChatGPT can help us. What's going to be the new movement? It's not that it's going to kill the billable. It's going to give birth
to the new structure or new billing structures or.
Well, yeah, we got to play with
Let's
that.
workshop this a little bit. And then,
it's interesting. I mean, when we started Center-Based 12 years ago, that was the thing they were talking about. And we were new to legal and we were like, the billable hour is going away. Well, 12 years later, it's still here.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
It's really one of the very first things somebody taught me, like my first day on the job 20 years ago. It was like, well, we really need to talk about alternative fee arrangements because we're not going to be billing by the hour much longer. Okay, well, 20 years. Okay, so real quick before we have another segment, but I do want to ask you about the master black belt legal lean Six Sigma. Did I get it right? Can you, for people who don't know what they're talking about, me included, can you give us a rundown of what it is, what it takes, what it means?
Yeah, there was one part of my career midway through when I was a mid-level manager where I switched out of finance and moved into this Lean Six Sigma group while I was working at Fannie Mae. And at the time, I had remembered Lean Six Sigma, which was, the genesis of Lean goes back to some of the Toyota manufacturing processes that were adopted in the mid-1900s. And the genesis behind Six Sigma is Motorola and a reduction of defects, and getting things right the first time and removing variability in process. So when you put Lean and Six Sigma together, it's about efficiency and effectiveness, or efficiency meaning you've made the process operate in the best way possible by removing as much fat from the process. We call it Muda. And Six Sigma is about reducing the defects and improving quality. And so when I worked in that Lean Six Sigma department, what I learned was some very simple concepts that became like a toolbox for me. So in order to get your certification, you have to do projects that lead to these efficiencies, and you have to take tests at these organizations that give the test. And the Six Sigma one is particularly hard because it involves a lot of statistics. But I went after that certification. I went from a yellow belt to a green belt to a black belt to a master black belt. And I attacked it with that same mindset that I tell you I go after all my educational capabilities. But what I really took away from it was a process improvement mindset that I would encourage anyone to learn and to do, so that every day when I wake up, I'm always thinking about how to improve the way I do things, how I get to work, how I do a process, when I think about my billing processes at work, when I think about how we deliver legal services, and I always have a toolkit or a project list of things that Lean Six Sigma could apply to. And there's a lot of other concepts around how to do projects faster through sprints and other things that all come with being a Lean Six Sigma expert. Am I an expert nowadays? I wish I worked in an environment that allowed for constant improvement over and over every day. But unfortunately, work is one thing where I apply it at a moderate pace. But at home, my kids have to brush their teeth with the efficiency of you have to brush and floss at the same time and make sure you don't miss a spot.
Oh my gosh.
No defects in your teeth.
Yeah, I'd hate to do a home improvement project at your house with you or something.
Yeah, the perfect example I give to people is when I first met my wife, she went to an old African-American Baptist church that used to go for like 4 hours, 5 hours on a Sunday. And I said that, and there were nothing but older women in the church. And I said, that's because guys won't come here because football starts at 1 o'clock. And I said, and I pulled up the program from her church. And while they were doing everything, I started process mapping her church. And one of the key concepts around Lean Six Sigma is finding value added activities, those things that contribute to the end goal, and non value added activities. And I was like, prayer, that's value added. We need to pray. Music, value added. We need to uplift the spirit as we go into a spirit of worship. Reading the church mail, not value added. You took 30 minutes to read the mail. And so by the time I was done, I had her 5-hour church service down to like 27 minutes flat. And I was like, you can save more souls in 27 minutes than you guys are doing in 5 hours. Perfect example, perfect use of Lean Six Sigma.
I love it.
We
called the priest at my church Father Microwave because as a kid, because he got through it in about 35 minutes.
That's right. He heats them up, gets them up, yeah.
It was good.
Yeah.
It was good.
And if you want to stay around for more fellowship, hey, hang out after church. There's a fellowship hall.
Well, we know your introvert self is not hanging out. You're going home to watch football by yourself.
Okay. So I know we're getting close on time. So we want to do our fun lightning round. So we're going to just throw a few fun questions at you, hopefully fun. And we just want you to give us a quick answer on it. So I'll give you a softball, William. You said you're on the road 70% of the time. So what's the best city you visited for work and why?
Woo, wow. I'd say one of the best I visited was Barcelona. And why? Because walking to work was walking past some of the most interesting beaches I've ever seen.
Interesting.
You can follow with me on that later.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I like it.
I've never been to Barcelona, so I guess actually I've never actually been anywhere. I went to Canada this past weekend. It was my first time to Canada, and I went to a casino, and this is way off topic, but I put my ATM card in, and when it spit out something that wasn't US dollars, I almost fell over. I was like, what?
At least you didn't. Hopefully, you didn't throw it in the trash can and be like,
no. Also, gambling is significantly cheaper because of how great the US dollar is right now. So So speaking of making financial mistakes like gambling in Canada, what is the biggest financial mistake you see law firms making repeatedly? Other than yours, of course.
I see law firms repeatedly, and I'll use a quote that I like to use. I see law firms repeatedly stepping over dollars to pick up nickels.
I love it.
Stepping over dollars to pick up nickels.
That's good. I like that one. If you could eliminate one financial reporting requirement for law firms, what would it be? Surveys.
Yes, the law firms do surveys to compare themselves to their peers. Yes, that self-reporting aspect of it makes it a little bit hard to compare,
That's a good one. I like that.
That's a really good one. I was thinking like employee engagement surveys, client satisfaction surveys. No, that's not what. Okay, you're an avid reader. So give me your most overrated business book and your most underrated business book.
Wow. The most underrated business book, underrated, meaning The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, right? Like that one is just classic, easy to understand examples, good for a student, good for a first-year employee, good for someone who's been working for most of their life to kind of pick up some habits and whatever. And then overrated, I can't really say, so I'd say there's probably no overrated book because you could take anything away from any book and class and conference and everything else. For me, maybe it was The Art of War. Didn't quite land with me the way like people say it revolutionizes things. I tried to read it a few times. Yeah, it didn't quite land.
That's a heavy lift. Okay. Yeah. Rob, you got another one?
No, I was going to say, let's go ahead and move on into the last segment. Okay. Your favorite segment.
My favorite segment. Okay.
Okay. Wow.
My favorite. Well, but wait, I had one more. Can I have one more question before the favorite segment?
Sure.
Just really quickly. Okay. Yeah. So One question I asked you while we were at the ALA conference that we got when I got the feedback and the reviews, this was the one that everybody really liked the most. So I would like to ask you this question again. And that is for people who are in a law firm who want to step up into a C-suite role or who want to, reach that next level. What's your most practical piece of advice? Not necessarily the LinkedIn stuff, but just the unglamorous truth. What's the advice?
Yeah, so I'm not sure which advice I gave then, because
Do you want me to tell you what you said then?
maybe you should start there, and I can give some context as to why I said it. Because go ahead, what did I say then?
You said something about sometimes you have to step up to step back to step up. Meaning if you're at a large role, a small role at a small firm, you might need to go to a small role at a big firm before you get into a big role or something along the lines.
Yeah, and I think I'd say it a little bit differently today. Going back to my first point, the world needs everybody, right?
Yeah.
And I have someone I'm mentoring now who constantly tells me, William, I don't want to be in the C-suite. Too much anxiety. I look at the people in there and I don't want to be, so pick a person a leader that you've seen who's always stressed out or something who you don't want to be like. And what I often say is, I'm still the same person who was the analyst, manager, and director before I became CFO. I am not the CFO that my predecessor was. So the world needs everybody. They need people with different personalities, skill sets, background, development to step in and want to be leaders. But in order to step into a leadership role, you have to be somebody people are willing to follow. And you have to understand your strengths and your weaknesses as it relates. And that part is a given, right? Like, we are never going to put the smartest person into the biggest leadership role just because they're smart. Because if they can't collaborate, be someone that people want to work for, et cetera, then you just got a smart person who's destroying the whole rest of the team. And so what I often tell people is that one thing that made the biggest difference for me was understanding that there are a set of leadership characteristics that are the best for every leader in terms of, integrity and being someone willing to follow. And then figuring out where your strengths are and where your weaknesses are for me, it was by working with an executive coach. And then working on your own personal weaknesses that make you weak as a leader, because the things you did to get there, being smart, knowing Excel, being the sharpest accountant that there ever was, is different than the skills you need once you're in leadership. I don't need to be the best Excel person anymore. I don't need to write the best analysis anymore. My team does that. I need to be able to teach everyone up underneath me how to do their jobs and contribute to the bigger cause. So that may not be straightforward for everyone to understand, but I think the most important takeaway or the key takeaway is to understand that you are not in your management role ready for leadership. You need to understand what leadership needs are and know where your gaps are and then work on them.
That's great. That's
It's completely different than what I said at ALA.
it's no, it's not. No, it's not. It a little bit is more about, it's also about humility, right? I think that was the general theme that you answered both places, is to have a little humility. And I was that the student you described in the beginning, that was the raising my hand and the teacher's pet and high grades.
Yeah. And that humility word you
And I could use some humility.
Exactly. When I did that work with the executive coach and they told me where my gaps were, it was the most humbling moment of my whole career. And the reason it was humbling is because up until then, I had gotten a lot of attaboys, like, you're running fast. You're the fastest. We're going to make you, and that was all great for the promotions. But then when I really still needed to get from where I was to get into the C-suite, I needed to understand why people weren't willing to follow me, why they wouldn't necessarily want to work for a leader like me. And that was kind of hard to swallow. Today, I hope my team is probably listening. I hope you guys would say this. No, but I today I know the things my team would say about me because I'm open to the feedback and I know what I'm trying to portray as a leader.
Mhm.
I'm very intentional about leadership, not about getting the job done. It's about leading them, and they are the ones. They're my superpower. They're my super team. They help me get the job done.
I love that. Okay, thank you for the bonus question. I appreciate that. The final segment that we do on our show is something we call Pitch Your Passion. And it's a couple of minutes where you just talk about anything you're passionate about. Sometimes people will use a charity, their favorite charity. Sometimes people will talk about a book or their firm or a business they're in or anything like that. It's your time to pitch whatever you would like to pitch to us.
Wow, I mean that's a broad area
It
of
is. It is.
opportunity, and I think for me, given where we are as a world today, my biggest pitch to people would be compassion and understanding of others. Because it's challenging to accept differences and to use that as a strength for all of us. And I think too often we're using differences to separate instead of to come together. And I tell people that I learned that firsthand for myself when I went to school down in Mississippi. I was an African American man who had been in all these situations I told you about earlier. And I went down to one of the most southern states, of which I had a very stereotypical mindset about in my mind. And I had to learn to acclimate, and I had to find a way to be accepted by people I thought didn't think like me, talk like me, or act like me. And when I went down there and had to get used to gun racks in the back of cars and had to get used to Confederate flags in other students' windows, and being from what I considered up north in Maryland, which wasn't up north, but up north for me.
It's up north. Yes, it's up north. That's it.
And my first job, I tell you, my first job was at a cottonseed company, where one of the benefits of the job was a membership to the hunting club that was right across the street. The only problem was the hunting club didn't accept Black people. And so I was the only Black person in our corporate office, and I was the only one who could not avail myself of this benefit. And there were many other stories around the cottonseed, the people outside picking the cotton and the cottonseed in Mississippi that I had to learn to live with. But when I brought that information back home to the DC area with me, and I heard a lot of the conversations about politics, or if I tell people I went to school in Mississippi, they go, "Oh my God." I learned that I had the benefits that they didn't have. And so I would just say, given my worldly travels, given the places I've been, the people I've been around, and the organization. So you gave me a chance to pitch an organization that I support. One of the beauties of this world is I get to sit on the board of an organization that sole mission is to provide employment opportunities for people who are unemployable. Now, let me repeat that. Their sole mission is to provide employment for people who are unemployable. And when I say unemployable, they are people you would not normally employ. And they are coming out of prisons, they are coming from other economic circumstances. And the founder of this organization is, you know, not a person who came out of prison. He's a person who sits on Wall Street and leads one of the biggest private equity firms in the world and takes more money than whatever and contributes it to this cause in order to help people that don't look like him and act like him. And he's so committed to it. I see it at every board meeting, and every board member there is so committed to it that, again, diverse people who are working to support people who aren't their brothers and sisters or whatever, they're just different because they realize that the world needs everybody. That's a mission I can get behind. That's a mission that I try to take to my day-to-day life. That's a mission that I take into my employment strategies for my own team and the people that work for me. And then the last thing I'll say regarding that is when you do things like that, the reward comes back to you tenfold. And I literally got an email just the other day. I could pull it up right now, from a woman that I hired, one of the first people I ever hired in my life when I was working at Accenture. And at the time, she was a 40-something-year-old woman coming back into the workplace after raising her kids. And she couldn't find a job anywhere. And she was smart, capable, and willing to do anything. And I hired her for what normally was like a 20-year-old's role at Accenture. And she worked for Accenture for the past 20 or 25 years. And she's still thankful that I gave her a chance back then 25 years ago. You just can't script that. I mean,
Will you share the name of that organization?
The organization I was talking about earlier is Rediff, R-E-D, Rediff.
Okay.
We'll make sure to link it in the show notes. But William, I know we're out of time. You've been an absolutely incredible guest. So thank you so much, William, for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for your time, your energy. You guys do great together, the two of you. You make it fun. When you said we're going to get to the fun questions, I was like, all the questions were fun.
Thank you. That means a
Copy
lot.
and paste that. All the questions were fun. Yeah, we told you this was going to be a softball interview. We're not hardball people, but our like guests are people who do those jobs, and our attendees, people who listen to us, just want to hear us talking about how we're real people. I mean, that's what they love to hear.
That's good. And I would be remiss not to thank the people who are listening to your podcast right now, because we know what it's like to have an audience, and we know what it's like for people to click on the podcast. But more importantly, for those who are still listening, the ones who get to the end of the podcast.
Oh, yes. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Mostly Legal Podcast. If you like what you heard, make sure you like and subscribe so you don't miss a single episode.
Stay tuned as we uncover more behind-the-scenes stories of law firms with the best minds in the business. And Rob.
Thanks.